"What's this supposed to be?" my mom asked, not even reaching to take the flowers. "They're specially imported orchids," I suggested quietly. "There's something special inside, too." But she didn't look. Instead, her face turned red with anger, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the armchair. "Oh, I knew it. You really are a useless girl." She spat that out as she laughed. "You show up here in that plain outfit, probably the only nice thing you own. You drive some basic rental car because you can't afford anything better, and now you give me flowers? What am I supposed to do with these?" "They'll die in 3 days." She threw the bouquet back at me. It landed on the coffee table, scattering petals across the surface. My step-siblings Nate and Cassie snickered behind their hands. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the drama. My stepfather Victor just kept scrolling through his phone as if nothing was happening. I picked up the bouquet calmly, gathering the scattered petals with careful fingers. The room had gone quiet, waiting to see what I would do next. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let them see me rattled. "You know what's funny, Mom?" I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. "Hidden in these flowers is." She knew nothing about them. Their attitude was the same as in the past. They didn't think of me as their own family member. My heart drifted back to 10 years ago, to that day when my life was changed forever. It was on my high school graduation day when I was pulled away. I'd barely removed my cap and gown when Mom and Victor, my father-in-law, called me into the living room for a serious discussion. They sat on the couch like judges about to pass a sentence while I stood before them, my heart racing with anticipation. "Alexandra." Victor began, his voice stern and cold. "You're 22 now. We've been generous, but you need to understand that you can't live here forever. You need to find a real job and start earning your own living." I smiled calmly, feeling a surge of relief wash over me rather than the panic they clearly expected. "I understand completely. I'll move out by next week," I replied, savoring the flash of surprise that crossed their faces. I guess they were both expecting defiance and tears from me. Mom opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then closed it again. Her perfectly lipsticked lips drew a solitary line. "Well, good," Victor finally managed. "That's very mature of you." Neither of them asked where I planned to go or how I would support myself. They were too relieved that I'd agreed so easily to risk asking questions that might complicate things. I could almost feel their eagerness to turn my bedroom into another space for their precious Cassie. Moving day arrived faster than I expected. I packed my life into 4 cardboard boxes and 2 suitcases, my fingers trembling slightly as I wrapped each item. It was surprising how little I'd accumulated over the years, almost like I'd been subconsciously preparing for this moment all along, waiting for my chance to escape. Grandma Ellie pulled up in her blue Honda at exactly 9 in the morning. I watched through my bedroom window as she parked, my stomach knotting as I half expected Mom or someone else to come see what was happening. But the house remained silent, even though I could see some movement behind the curtains of Cassie's room. As we drove away, I watched my childhood home shrink in the side mirror until it disappeared completely. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt lighter with each mile we put between us and that house of carefully crafted pretenses, like chains falling away from my shoulders. I spent that summer working at Sunshine Cafe, serving coffee and sandwiches to regulars who always tipped well and treated me like family. The warmth in their smiles was something I'd forgotten could exist. The owner, Mrs. Peterson, even let me pick up extra shifts when I wanted to save more for college expenses. Since then, my relationship with my parents faded away completely. September came, and I boarded a plane to start my new life at Westlake University, 3 states away from everything I'd known. "This is it, my fresh start," I whispered to myself as the plane took off. The real estate and business program was challenging, but I threw myself into it completely, determination burning in my chest with every late-night study session. My roommate Liv became my first real friend since high school. She didn't know my whole story at first, but when she finally learned about it, she just hugged me tightly and said, "Their loss, girl. Their absolute loss." Mom's Instagram became my window into the life I'd left behind. There they were, the perfect family, smiling at Nate's business networking events, celebrating Cassie's gallery openings, taking vacation selfies at expensive resorts. My stomach would clench seeing their practiced poses. The captions always read like marketing copy, "So proud of our amazing entrepreneurs," or "Nothing better than quality family time." I was never mentioned. Not even once. It was like I'd never existed, erased from the family narrative. I spent holidays at Grandma's house, cooking together and watching classic films from her collection. The smell of her homemade apple pie would fill the house with warmth that no luxury restaurant could match. We created our own traditions, and they meant more to me than any forced family dinner ever had. Sometimes she'd catch me scrolling through Mom's social media posts and gently take my phone away, her eyes filled with understanding. "Don't torture yourself," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "You're making your own story now, one that's real." And I was. I graduated summa cum laude with job offers already lined up, thanks to my internships and academic performance. Liv's mentor, Diana Westbrook, ran a prestigious real estate firm, and she noticed my potential during a university property investment showcase. "We need ambitious minds like yours," she said during my interview, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Your professors speak very highly of your market analyses." I started as a junior agent, but I wasn't content to stay there. I worked weekends, built my client network meticulously, and studied market trends obsessively. Within 5 years, I'd become a top-selling agent and had enough savings for a down payment on my own luxury condo. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I stood in my empty living room, keys in hand, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and finally let myself cry. They were happy tears, tears of pride, of accomplishment, of knowing that I'd made it on my own terms. Then came the biggest surprise. Diana called me into her office one morning, about 6 years after I'd started at the company. "I've been watching your progress," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "You've consistently outperformed everyone. I want to make you a partner in our luxury properties division." My hands trembled as I opened the folder and nearly gasped at the commission structure. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making, especially at 28. I never saw the point in broadcasting my life online. Sure, I had social media accounts, but I mostly used them to share occasional photos of properties or sunset views from my condo. Grandma was the only one who knew about my sales records, my new condo, or the sleek black Audi R8 I'd bought myself as a reward. "You've earned every bit of it," she'd say proudly, her eyes glistening whenever I shared my achievements with her. Meanwhile, Nate and Cassie's social media feeds were like endless highlight reels of mediocrity. "I can't believe they still do this," I muttered to myself, scrolling through their profiles. Nate would pose next to his used BMW 3 Series with captions like CEO lifestyle. Blessed luxury life. While Cassie shared photos of herself at designer stores, tagging luxury brands she clearly couldn't afford without Mom and Victor's credit cards. One post particularly made me laugh. Nate standing next to his car at some local networking event, writing, "When hard work pays off. Success entrepreneur real estate." I was reading this while sitting in my Audi R8, its engine purring like a contented cat, worth more than his annual salary at Victor's company. The leather seats still smelled new, and the dashboard gleamed in the sunlight. But I didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. My success spoke for itself in ways Instagram filters couldn't capture. Then came the message that changed everything. It popped up on my Instagram DMs one Tuesday morning, the notification sound making my heart skip a beat. "Alexandra, it's your mother. Mother's Day is coming up next month, and I'm having a small family gathering at home. I expect you to attend and bring something appropriate. It's on Sunday, 1 p.m. sharp. Don't embarrass me by showing up empty-handed." I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold as I read the message multiple times. 3 years of minimal contact, and this was how she reached out. No "how are you," no attempt to bridge the gap, just a command to appear at her gathering, with that subtle expectation of an expensive gift. I almost deleted the message right there, but something stopped me, my finger hovering over the screen. Curiosity, maybe, or the desire to see what would happen when our worlds collide. I called Diana and requested a few days off, then booked a flight to my hometown, my stomach a mix of butterflies and dread. That evening, over tea in her cozy kitchen filled with the scent of freshly baked cookies, Grandma asked the question I'd been pondering myself. "What are you planning to give her, sweetheart?" I smiled, pulling out my phone to show her the photos. A lakeside vacation property I'd recently acquired through a foreclosure deal. 3 bedrooms, private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Grandma's eyes widened, her teacup freezing halfway to her lips. "Alex, that's too much. She doesn't deserve it after how she treated you." "Oh, I know she doesn't," I laughed, taking a sip of tea, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. "But can you imagine her face when she realizes what she's been missing all these years?" The daughter she pushed aside turned out to be more successful than she could have imagined. I want to see her expression when she realizes just how wrong she was about me. "You're a little bit devious," Grandma chuckled, shaking her head, her eyes twinkling. "I must say, I'm rather looking forward to it myself." "You can do this," I whispered to myself as I pulled up to my mother's suburban house. The morning of Mom's gathering, I slipped on my Armani pantsuit, elegant in its simplicity, with a tailoring that spoke wealth without screaming it. The price tag could have bought 10 of the flashy outfits I spotted later that day. I deliberately drove my rental sedan instead of requesting an Audi from the agency, amused by how this would play into their assumptions about my life. I carried an exquisite bouquet of rare orchids and peonies, arranged by a florist who served celebrities, the delicate blooms nestled in tissue paper. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips as I walked up the familiar driveway. The house turned out to be exactly what I expected, superficially upgraded with the kind of features that impressed people who'd never seen truly high-end homes. The kind of place that had granite countertops but cheap cabinets beneath them. I'd shown properties that made this look like student housing. Mom greeted me at the door, her eyes barely flickering over me before her lip curled slightly. "Oh, Alexandra, you came. You could have dressed up a bit more for the occasion." She glanced at my understated designer outfit with disapproval. The living room was already full when I entered. Mom sat in her favorite armchair, wearing a sequined blouse that sparkled under the recessed lighting. Victor was beside her, and Nate and Cassie flanked them like royal heirs. The rest of the seats were filled with relatives I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Linda, who used to pinch my cheeks too hard, Cousin Rachel, who always bragged about her kids, and various other vague faces from my past. I took my seat at the far end of the room, watching the show unfold. Aunt Linda gave Mom a scented candle set. "It's from that exclusive boutique at the mall," she explained proudly, her voice carrying across the room. Mom cooed over it like it was diamonds. "Oh, Linda, you know exactly what I love." Rachel presented a gift card to a local spa for a day of pampering. More excited squeals from Mom. The gifts continued: a cookbook, a decorative vase, a basket of bath products. Mom treated each one like a precious treasure, making sure to emphasize how thoughtful and perfect each gift was, her eyes lighting up with each package. Then came Nate and Cassie's moment. They stood up together, grinning like they'd just won the lottery. "Mom," Nate said, and it still felt wrong hearing him call her that. "Cassie and I pooled our money to get you something special." Cassie pulled out her phone and showed a photo. "It's a 65-inch smart TV. We already had it delivered and mounted in your living room." Mom burst into tears, pulling them both into a tight hug, her jewelry clinking as she embraced them. "My wonderful, generous children. I can't believe you did this. You must have saved for months." Finally, all eyes turned to me. I reached forward and presented my bouquet. Mom's expression darkened immediately. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, not even reaching to take the flowers. "They're specially imported orchids," I suggested quietly. "There's something special inside too." But she didn't look. Instead, her face turned red with anger, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the armchair. "Oh, I knew it. You really are a useless girl." She spat that out with a laugh. "You show up here in that plain outfit, probably the only nice thing you own. You drive some basic rental car because you can't afford anything better. And now you give me flowers? What am I supposed to do with these?" "They'll die in 3 days." She threw the bouquet back at me. It landed on the coffee table, scattering petals across the surface. Nate and Cassie snickered behind their hands. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the drama. Victor just kept scrolling through his phone as if nothing was happening. I picked up the bouquet calmly, gathering the scattered petals with careful fingers. The room had gone quiet, waiting to see what I would do next. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let them see me rattled. "You know what's funny, Mom?" I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. "Hidden in these flowers is the deed to a lakefront vacation property. 3 bedrooms, private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Her face was drained of color. Cassie dropped her champagne flute with a shatter that seemed deafening in the sudden silence. That's impossible," Mom stammered, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide her shock. "You can't afford something like that?" "You're obviously lying." I couldn't help but laugh, the sound cutting through the tension. "You'd know whether I could afford it or not if you'd shown any interest in my life these past few years. But let me catch you up right now. I'm a partner at Westbrook Luxury Properties. I own my condo in the city outright. And that rental car you mocked? I drove it because I didn't want to leave my Audi R8 parked in this neighborhood overnight." Nate's mouth hung open, his carefully cultivated image of success crumbling before my eyes. Cassie had stopped giggling, her fingers nervously twisting her fake designer bracelet. "But since you're so convinced I'm a failure," I continued, tucking the small envelope back into the bouquet, "and you clearly don't want anything from me, I won't spoil your Mother's Day any further. Enjoy your TV. I hear the resolution is almost as good as the one in my home theater system." I walked out with my head high, the soft thud of the front door closing behind me feeling like the period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I drove straight to Grandma's house, the weight on my shoulders lifting with each mile. She was waiting for me, 2 cups of tea already steaming on the coffee table, the familiar scent of chamomile filling the air. I told her everything that had happened, my voice occasionally breaking. "Some people never change," she sighed, shaking her head, the lamplight catching the silver in her hair. "Your mother's always been more interested in appearances than reality. Even as a little girl, she cared more about how things looked than how they felt." We were still talking when my phone started ringing, an unknown number, but the flutter in my stomach told me who it was. "Alexandra, sweetheart," Mom's voice dripped with honey, the contrast to her earlier tone making me wince. "I don't know where she got my number. I've been thinking about what happened today." "Have you?" I replied coolly, my fingers tightening around the phone. "Yes, and I realize now that I may have been hasty. If you're still willing to give me that property deed, I'd love to accept it. We could use this as a fresh start. I want to be part of your life again. We're family." "No," I said, finally understanding something that had eluded me for years. "We're not family. We're just people who share DNA. And you didn't want to restore our relationship, you just want that lake house." I hung up, my hand trembling slightly, but my resolve firm. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing after I left town. Mom called from different numbers, her cell, the house phone, even Victor's phone. When she realized I wouldn't pick up, the messages started flooding in, each notification making my stomach clench. "Alex, please call me back. We need to talk about this property situation. I've been thinking about what you said about your career. Maybe you could help Nate get started in real estate? He's very good with people. Cassie's been saying she'd love to intern at a luxury property firm like yours. It would look so good on her resume. The house needs some renovations, and since you're doing so well." Each message was more transparent than the last. No apologies, no acknowledgement of the past, just an endless stream of requests and hints about my money. The desperation in her words made my skin crawl. It was like watching a hungry predator circling its prey, except what Mom had lost wasn't a meal, it was her relationship with her daughter. I read each message with a strange detachment, like I was analyzing a client's property portfolio. The tactics were almost impressive in their variety. Guilt. "I'm your mother. How can you ignore me after all I've done?" Flattery. "You've become such a successful businesswoman." Manipulation. "Family should help family in times of need." And even threats. "I'll tell everyone in the industry how you abandoned your poor mother. Your mother's been calling me non-stop. Grandma told me over the phone a week after I'd returned home. She showed up at my garden gate today, if you can believe it. Demanded I give her your address and information about the lake house." "What did you tell her?" I asked, though the warmth in my chest already told me the answer. "I told her to get off my property before I called the police," she chuckled, her voice strong despite her age. You should have seen her face turn red as my tomatoes. She kept saying she had a right to know where her daughter lives and what properties you own. I reminded her that she gave up that right years ago when she chose Victor's children over you. I could picture Mom standing at Grandma's garden gate, probably wearing one of her knockoff designer outfits, trying to bully her way into getting what she wanted. It was the same pattern I'd watched my whole life, but now I could see it clearly for what it was, pure selfishness disguised as family concern. She didn't take it well, Grandma continued, started ranting about how ungrateful we both were, how she'd sacrificed everything for you. Mrs. Henderson next door was watering her roses and heard everything. When she finally realized I wasn't going to give in, she stormed off to her car, nearly backing into Mr. Peterson's mailbox. "But Alex, be careful." The look in her eyes, she seemed desperate. "I already blocked her on everything," I assured Grandma. "Social media, phone, email, everything. And security at my office has her photo at the front desk in case she shows up." After we hung up, I walked through my condo, running my fingers along the cool marble countertops, looking at everything I'd built for myself. The custom furniture I'd carefully selected, the original art on the walls, the panoramic view of the city skyline from my floor-to-ceiling windows. All of it earned through my own hard work and determination. I thought about Mom's messages, about her sudden interest in my life now that she knew I had valuable assets. In the end, it was almost funny in a sad way. She'd thrown away a relationship with her daughter for the appearance of a perfect family with Victor and his kids. And now she was desperate to get back into my life for the appearance of success and access to my properties. But she taught me one valuable lesson: family isn't about DNA or marriage certificates. It's about love, support, and being there for each other through good times and bad. I have that with Grandma and Liv. The next morning, I called my lawyer and transferred the lake house deed into a trust for Grandma and myself to share. When I told her, she tried to refuse, tears welling in her eyes. "You deserve this more than she ever did," I said. "You've been more of a mother to me than she ever was." She hugged me tight, her embrace warm and secure, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, not in a house of pretense, but in a true home built on love.